Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 in a series where I am creating these 2 botanical themed journals from the Botanical Collage and Cluster Mega Pack from the Junk Journal Studio. This is the pink add-on. You saw a second ago, I showed you the pink version of the cover. I created that using some fabrics from my stash. And this cover for the yellow journal is a combination of this really beautiful vintage fabric and this other fabric that I have no idea what this is, but it's got a really thick white backer. It's almost like a really thick upholstery, or not even, it's thicker than that, like wallpaper maybe or something. I have no idea what it is, but I used heat and bond, which is an iron-on adhesive, to combine those two because that one fabric is literally so thick that it's acting like a cover. And so I just trimmed all of that down to size for my journal, and now I'm going to do the stitching of the signature into the cover. I'm going to use a 3-hole pamphlet stitch because it's one of my favorites for this type of sewing, and I have found to have really good luck with it. I am taking just a second here though to get all my papers lined up the way that I want them, just making sure everything's kind of evenly spaced where I want it. And then I'm going to add a couple of little clips to this, and I am using a book cradle. If you do a lot of bookbinding, I highly recommend having a book cradle. It just makes your life so much easier. But if you don't, you could use like a book, just kind of open it up to the middle and, kind of plop it down in there. Or, you can even punch into like a foam or something like that. And then I'm using some waxed linen thread, and I have a heavy duty awl, which I definitely need for this particular fabric. And starting in the middle, you could certainly measure this. I never do. I just kind of eyeball it. So I made a hole in the middle and then one at the top and the bottom, about an inch in. And you can see I'm having to come back through here and really work through this, punch these holes, because I couldn't go down far enough in that book cradle. But I just kind of, held it off. I'm working on a self-healing mat as well. And then from this center, you're going to go out to the outside and then go back in to the signature from the top hole or the bottom. It doesn't really matter. And then you're going to go all the way down to the other hole and back out to the outside. And then you're going to go back into the middle. And if you've seen my channel, I say this all the time. When you are coming back in that middle hole, just be careful that your needle doesn't go through the thread that's already there. If you split those threads, you won't be able to tighten this down. So I'm just making sure everything is really tight before I tie a knot. And it always helps to kind of pull in the direction of your sewing too. That way you don't like make that hole bigger there. And then I'm just going to tie this in a square knot there, and I'm going to leave my strings hanging. Whoever gets this journal, you can, tie a bow or trim them down a little bit. I always just like to leave them long. And so this pink journal, I'm going to do the same exact thing. So I'm not going to make you watch me punch all the holes, but the process is exactly the same. I will walk you through the sewing though. So from the inside going to the outside, I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail there for you to kind of hold on to. And then you're going to come back in. I always go to the top. I just find it easier. And then go back down to the bottom hole and out to the outside, and then back in through the middle. And again, you're just going to make sure not to split those threads, tie everything off, and make sure everything is nice and secure before you tie that knot. And then, again, just going to leave my threads hanging. If you want the threads on the outside, which is, an idea too, you can have it kind of a decorative element, just start the opposite direction. So you start from the outside. And then here, I just wanted to add a little bit of trim to this on the edge of this cover. And I'm not leaving this like hanging over so that it's kind of flopping. It's actually, most of the trim is actually on the cover. I just liked the little decorative element that it gave. So I'm going to do this to the front and the back, and then I'm going to set it to the side to dry before I trim off the excess so that it doesn't move around. And then for the yellow journal, I really felt like it needed some book corners. So these are some Tim Holtz book corners, and I'm just going to add a little bit of my Helmar 450 quick dry glue, just a dot of it. You probably don't even really need it, but it just makes me feel better in my brain. So I'm going to add a little bit of a dot of that in there, and then I'm going to place this on the corner. I'm going going to use just my hands to kind of start folding those over, and then I'll pull in some pliers and flatten everything down nice and neat. And I will do that on all four corners. I'm not going to make you watch me do that. You've probably seen that done a million times, but that just gets everything down nice and flush with the cover. And I just feel like that made it feel a little bit more finished, and always just gives an extra, a nice look to a cover, I think. So now I want to start working on the inner pages of these journals. And on this one, this ledger that I had, I was afraid this might get a little bit too brittle. So I added some washi tape where I have this folded over, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of the printable here. I'm going to tear it down and add it to that little section. I'm going to make that into a pocket. This is just to kind of decorate it a little bit. I'm not going to decorate all of the pages today. I'm going to add just a couple of things to this journal. I will say really quickly too, this journal has already been spoken for. But if you ever see me working on a journal and you kind of, want to reserve it or whatever, and if that's something that you're interested in doing, feel free to reach out to me whenever I'm working on a journal. The yellow one is still available. It will go up into my shop, my website, which is called chosenandcrafting.com, when this series is finished. But just putting that out there. And also I do have an option where you can do, send me a message if there's something that you're looking for specifically. I'm happy to even try to do maybe a semi-custom order or something like that. I'm kind of exploring that option on my website as well. But anyway, what you'll see me doing here is just doing the same thing to the back side of that ledger paper, where again, I just added a little bit of washi and then reinforced that fold. And then I have these two pages of, this is from an vintage wildflowers book, and so I just thought they worked really well with these botanical journals. And this one I really love because it's got that pink kind of corner. So I just trimmed it down just a little bit. I'm going to use this as a big tuck spot. So I'm only going to glue this down on two sides, this book paper, and that way it gives some interest to this page that's just white. And then I can add like a tag, or, like a big tag or a journaling card or something back there. And it'll just be this beautiful kind of already decorated pocket to use. And then on this page, I did the same thing, but I had to cut the other corner. I didn't want to cut the pink off on this one because I didn't want the tuck spot to be on that side, if that makes sense, from where I'm gluing it, since I'm on the back side of the signature. And then this page that kind of has these three collage columns, I actually want to make a couple belly bands. And so I trimmed these down to fit on the page, and I wanted to reinforce them. And so I pulled out some vintage paper from my stash, and this is a good idea. This paper that I have, I've had for a long time, and it's a little bit brittle, this paper, and so I don't tend to use it in journals because once you fold it, it kind of cracks. And so this is a good way, if you have papers like that or books that have kind of gotten a little bit brittle, this is a good way to use those book pages. Just reinforce things. You can reinforce tags, you can reinforce pockets. In this instance, I'm just reinforcing these belly bands just to give it, since there's going to be, things sliding in and out of it, it just gives it a little bit more stability there. So I do print my printables on like 32-pound paper. So it's a good cardstock, but I just wanted a little bit extra security, I guess. And so that's just one of those ways that you can use up, even, it doesn't even have to necessarily be vintage book paper, but it will help reinforce it. So that's all I'm going to do for the pink journal for now. And in this journal, I do want to add just a couple little tip-in things here as well, just dealing with these pages. So this first page, because this journal is a smaller size, I had folded this side over. And I was thinking about making this into a pocket, wasn't really sure. I decided to just glue this first section down, and then I can add a pocket to this if I want to. Right now it's just going to kind of serve as a decorative element. And then this page is the one that when we put the journal together, I had this art print, and so I had already created the pocket. I'm gluing it down now here. And then I have these same vintage papers with these wildflowers in them, and I want to use these. I have obviously the yellow version for this journal. And I really want to use these in this book too. They're a little bit too tall. And what I'm going to do, I want to use this on this page, but I don't like how it looks with that section of the printable. So I'm going to actually reverse it. And you can see I'm just going to trim this down really quickly. I'm just using my ruler to tear off the bottom. And I'm going to flip this backwards. So I really like actually how this looks with the text. And in hindsight, I could have glued this down and made this into a pocket. I just went ahead and glued the entire section. But if I had just done the ends, the top and the bottom, I could have made another little pocket there. So that was, I just wanted to go ahead and just glue this down, and then I'll decorate this side of it. But now this will do a little flip out, and there's plenty of writing space because of the back side of that printable, and then it gives it some interest as well. And then I decided to kind of do the same thing with this coffee dyed paper, where I have kind of a big section of the coffee dyed paper folded over. I'm getting glue everywhere. But on this one, I decided I wanted to have this page really facing out. So it's going to basically look like a page, and then it will fold out, fold open. And then once it's on the inside there, you'll see like the back side of the page. I may add some more coffee dyed paper or some other writing space or a decorative element. You'll see when I flip this open right here. But I actually kind of like the text there as well. So I'm not sure how I'll handle that. We'll see when we get into part 3 of this. But then I want to go ahead and glue down this other little pocket. This is the other side of that art print. And there's not a whole lot else that I'm going to do in this particular video. I need to make ephemera and pockets and things, and so that will be the next video that I do. But I did also want to deal with this section here because I have this page, and both of these printables are kind of folded in toward the center, and I don't really like how that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down this one side. I could have folded it back the other way, but when I did that, I was going to lose part of each of those printables that I really loved. So I decided to just glue that down as it is, and then I can decorate over the top of that. But that's kind of the last thing I'm going to do in this journal for today. But stay tuned for part 3 where we make some ephemera and pockets and things. If you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. All my links will be down in the description, and until next time, bye.